Wellington Avenue United Church of Christ is a vibrant congregation on Chicago's North Side, where prayer and action inspire and challenge all who join the journey to embody God's hope and healing in Chicago and the world. Reverend Allie Baker is Wellington's full-time co-pastor, a graduate of Chicago Theological Seminary. Allie has also served as youth and young adults pastor and director of faith education at the church. And we welcome Reverend Keith Scott, who recently joined Allie as co-pastor at Wellington Avenue UCC. Keith is also moderator for the Chicago Metropolitan Association of the Illinois Conference of the United Church of Christ. Tell us about Wellington Avenue, the church community, and the people that you serve.
Wellington has been around for over 100 years. We're in the Lakeview neighborhood, right there on Wellington Avenue, close to Broadway. We share space with the Timeline Theater as well as the Broadway Youth Center. And we serve a range of folks from all over the city and the suburbs.
And I am rather new at Wellington. I've been there just a little bit over 90 days. And I've known about Wellington, and I personally was attracted to Wellington because of the diverse congregation.
Tell us how Wellington Avenue has been instrumental in shaping or uniting the community that it serves.
Just in my short time there, I've been there for going on 6 years now. One of the moments that I think was really, really powerful and important for us was when the Broadway Youth Center moved into the space. That was in 2013. And so the Broadway Youth Center serves youth 12 to 24 who are LGBTQ, some of whom are street-based young folk. And so when they first moved into the neighborhood, some of the folks had some strong feelings about that, and that kind of presented us with an opportunity to do some bridge building and community conversation and healing work.
I want you, if you could, share with us your faith journey and what led you to Wellington Avenue.
My faith journey pretty much started late in life, and it started at Trinity United Church of Christ under the Reverend Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright, and involved in ministry there myself, not on staff, but just doing lay ministry. And I heard the call to seminary, so I went ahead and went to seminary, went to McCormick Theological Seminary, and got my MDiv, and I heard the call to ordained ministry and became ordained. And so the first church I served was a historic African-American church on the South Side, UCC Church, Church of the Good Shepherd in the Washington Park neighborhood. And also currently I not only serve at Wellington Avenue UCC, but I also serve a new church start in Monee, Illinois, called All About Jesus UCC Ministries. So I think in a short time, I've been doing a lot.
I was raised in the church, but mom left and before I was a teenager, after the church burned her out and wasn't supporting her through the passing of her parents. But I found my way back with a friend, and it was actually to a United Church of Christ church. At the time, they had just called a new youth pastor, and he was forming a new youth group, so I got to be a part of that. Shortly after that, they called a out lesbian, and she was overseeing the faith education program. And a few folks left the church, but they supported her through that and stood by her, and that meant a lot to me as someone who had LGBT family, who had also had some issues with family, kind of putting them out. So to see this church be family with this new pastor was really, really foundational. And so I kind of continued with them, and then felt a call to ministry when I was 17 on a youth trip, where I kind of got to have a leadership role with other young folks, both the young folks from our program, the young folks from the program that we were working with to renovate a playground in Tennessee in a low-income housing project, and got to kind of find ways to bridge these two communities of young people. And my youth pastor used to ask, what is the thing you're doing when you feel the most alive? And that's God's call in your life. And that was the moment that I didn't look at the clock. I didn't worry about the sun going down. I just wanted to be right there in the midst of that community building moment.
How are you all servicing the youth who are LGBTQ?
Sure. So we have a Sunday school program that serves young folks from 0 to 12 or 13. We're hoping this year to kick off a confirmation class. And then in previous years, we've had an active youth group. Now we have been working with some young folks that come out of the BYC community, but also Lakeview and Chicago at large, called TRIP, which stands for the Reimagine Project. So that youth group kind of came out of the neighborhood response to BYC moving in and really playing into lots of stereotypes about what it means to be young and a person of color and LGBT and street-based, and youth who wanted to kind of represent themselves to the community or have a space to reimagine themselves and their neighborhoods and communities. And so we started TRIP, and we've done a few community-wide events, fashion show for Pride. We've done a Rhythm of the Streets concert, open mics. We had our Funky Family Feast for the holiday meal, and talked about how sometimes the holidays make us feel funky, but it's okay to feel funky together and have space to heal. And otherwise, we just support the BYC and the services they provide Monday through Friday.
Can you tell us about providing a space to heal? That seems like it's a very unique formula that your church is providing to this community. What does that mean, and does it relate to your faith journey at all?
Sure. I think, so part of that comes from my training with the night ministry and learning about trauma-informed care. And that has been really, really foundational for my ministry with young people who experience a lot of violence in this city. So creating intentional spaces for healing means taking seriously their trauma, taking seriously their stories, but also the practices and rituals they already engage in, but finding space or creating and holding space with them to bravely navigate that. And sometimes to speak that trauma out loud for the first time, to find healthy ways to cope and deal with that trauma. And to do it in community. That's the biggest thing, right? I mean, so often when we're trying to deal and heal, we do that in isolation, and that can lead to all types of unhealthy sort of practices. And when you have that community holding, but also that community accountability, we have much more luck in our healing process.
I was told there is a theater program that you guys have begun.
Well, I don't know that we've begun a theater program as much as we are so fortunate to share space with the Timeline Theater. Okay. And so once a month or once per production, we try to have a Wellington night at the theater. And
that just might be an omen for us because my background is in theater. So that's my undergrad, so I've acted professionally for years. So that may be something happening at Wellington. And
the first time you ever came to Wellington wasn't your first production?
So
tell us.
It's a cool story.
So we're talking the 80s. We're talking the mid 80s. I did my first professional show in that space at Wellington, and it was the title of the show was an original script called Coming Out. So it was about coming out as a gay person.
I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about your prayer for Wellington Avenue and those that you serve.
My prayer for the community is that it would be a place of care and connection, and where folks would come and feel cared for on the regular, and not just in times of crisis. I think that's what often draws folks back to the church if they're not already in it. But if everyone in that building, everyone in that community felt cared for, I think we would be doing our jobs. And in that would be that youth would find space in that youth would find mentorship, that youth would find their voice and would be respected in the powerful forces that they are to inform the church and not just be the hope and future of the church, but the present day church, and that they would be taken seriously as such.
Thank you, Allie, and thank you, Keith, for allowing us to reimagine the perspective that we have about church and the way that we do ministry. I'm LaShondra Stevens for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.